Okay, is everyone ready? We'll begin the committee of the whole meeting. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Virginia City Council chambers. This is a regularly scheduled committee of the whole meeting. Today's date is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. The time is 9 a.m. We have a really full agenda today. It'll take some time, so those of you who are here to sit through the entire committee of the whole meeting, please have some patience as we move to the agenda. We'll turn this portion of the meeting over to our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Gabe Zika to discuss the Essentia Health Iron Range Half Marathon.
Good morning. Please turn the light on to green. And for the sake of the general public, please state your name for the record. And welcome to this committee of the whole meeting.
Hey, my name's Gabe Zika. I'm affiliated with the Iron Range Half Marathon. You guys hear me okay? I appreciate you getting me on the agenda here today. So I just want to talk a little bit about this event. I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission for the City of Virginia, and we've been working together as a group to come up with other opportunities to provide different athletic things to do in town. And as a marathon runner myself, and having done some in other towns, I saw the economic benefit of doing those types of events. So I pitched it to Parks and Rec. We all agreed that it would be a good opportunity for the city and the community. So here we are. It's been about 4 or 5 months. We are listed as a business in the federal government in the state of Minnesota. We have bylaws, which I provided for you guys, just to give you a little bit of background about our purpose and what we're doing. Essentially, we're a nonprofit with the purpose of providing health and wellness benefits to the community. So this event would start on August 17th. Hopefully it'd be an annual event, and it would run from the Mesabi Trail trailhead in Eveleth around basically the communities of Eveleth, Gilbert, and into Virginia along the Mesabi Trail. Once we get into Virginia, we would come up the Mesabi Trail to 2nd Avenue, crossing by Bailey's Lake, and then we would go around Bailey's Lake, kind of back behind Natural Harvest, through Alcott Park, around Silver Lake, and then on a few different city streets in Virginia. And that's where we'd really need to talk to this council about permitting and safety and stuff like that. So in general, that's the kind of the gist of it. We would expect people to drive to the ITMEC for parking in the morning. We would have busing from Iron Trail Motors Event Center to Mesabi Trail Trailhead in the morning. And then we would have aid stations along the trail and in town approximately every 2 miles. Now, the route that I provided you guys is final, pending any approval from this council for what we want to do in town. We do have some flexibility if we want to do some different things in town. We tried to highlight the areas that were nice, go around the lakes, through the park, around other parks, and then kind of focused around the new school that should be built by then. If the bridge across Silver Lake is in by the time we have this event, we could cross that bridge, go around the bank onto Main Street. One thing, as this is an event planned for August 17th, there's also 2 other events in town. That was by design. Get people in town, do the half marathon, you can stay for the car show, and then Brewfest is in the afternoon. Having said that, because Brewfest the car show is on Main Street, we may not want to have anybody on Main Street. So we would require some traffic control, potentially road closings for a few hours. The plan is, if the safety plan I gave you was a draft that we had presented to Mesabi Trail back in March. So right now we're actually planning on starting a little earlier, like 7 a.m. rather than 7:30, and that's partially because it can be really hot in August. We don't want people running, later into the day. So having said that, so if you think a 4-hour event in total, 7 a.m. to noon, essentially, or 11, we would need road crossing support on 2nd Avenue and the other streets shown in the map for a couple hours on this kind of towards the end of it. I would expect after maybe an hour and 15 minutes, you could see some of the really more passionate runners getting into town. And then people that were walking would be a little bit later. So we'd have a couple hours of traffic control there. We have insurance as a company, $12 million through USA Track and Field. We're sanctioned and we're going to get the race certified too. Having said that, if you as a city need to be added as an additionally insured, we can do that. And then whatever other permitting we would need for an event like this, that's what we're here to talk about today. And then if there's any other questions, comments, or just general concerns about this event or how we kind of want to proceed with it, I'm open to hearing your feedback.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zika, I'll just say right from the top, from my perspective, this is an exciting event. It's well planned, well organized. You have the proper insurance tax records through the state of Minnesota, with they're required to do so. We have to work through some of the things through our staff, but I fully support moving forward with this, provide the in-kind services, and provide another level of recreational activity and bring people back to the country. So it's very well organized, and thank you for putting this together. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Gabe, thanks for the countless hours you've already put into this, and the rest of the committee. I too think this will be a great opportunity, and so I will move that the city work with you to facilitate the efficient and safe running of the Mara Half Marathon.
Been moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
By Councilor Motley for discussion. Further discussion. Councilor Motley.
The only discussion is this. I am so proud of you, and I know I can't imagine the amount of time you put into this, but this is super exciting, and it's been fun to see this actually come to fruition. I cannot believe you got it off its feet this fast in a couple months. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. So the motion on the floor in a second is to move staff to work with you to try to accommodate what your needs are, identify the in-kind services that are required for us, the traffic control. If there's any additional insurance that has to be obtained, I don't think there is, but they'll work through those little issues. But moving forward, the motion is to move forward with the approval of the Saffron Marathon and the route that you provided with us today. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Boyandich.
Thank you. I would also like to thank you. It's exciting to have a new event in town, and I think it will only build from here. So thanks for all the work.
Okay. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Zika.
Thank you. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you. Item number 2 is Matt Reed from SCH, our City Engineer of Record, to approve the resolution to award the sewer rehabilitation Phase 1 project.
Matt Reed, our Engineer of Record from SCH. Good morning.
Good morning. We opened bids last week for the sewer rehabilitation Phase 1 project that we've been talking about. Again, just a reminder, that's the storm sewer rehab down by the south of the public safety building. As you can see in your packets, I'm going to find it right here in mine. The bids came in pretty good. The base bid actually came in a little bit underneath the engineer's estimate, and then the alternate was a little bit more, but overall it was within what we had estimated it to be. So we're just looking for some direction from the council if you'd like to move forward with the project, and if so, would you like to include the alternate? And the alternate, for reference again, was to actually pave that alley that's south of 11th Street. So right now it's gravel, and the alternate was to, at this point, if we're going to go in there and dig it up and replace it, we figured we'd get an alternate to actually pave it. Jim and I had talked about it, and they maintain it. It'd be a little easier for them to maintain if it was paved and plow and all that stuff. So I can answer any questions or try to explain anything further if you'd like.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions, comments with respect to this? Councilor Johnson?
I will move the base bid and alternative 1 forward.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the resolution to award the sewer rehabilitation Phase 1 project. Is there support? By Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, how much under was the amount of that 496?
The engineer's estimate was 520. And so if you look on your sheet, the engineer's estimate is just to the left of the base of the bid itself. So you can kind of see all the numbers.
And while Matt is looking that up, and an answer for Councilor Paulson, just a clarification on your motion, Councilor Johnson, does that motion include the add alternate as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So if you can't see it, the engineer's estimate for the base bid was $520,853, and their bid was $496,613. So it was $30,000 roughly.
So we have actual room to actually add the alternate in there
The alternate was actually part of the original budget overall. So the alternate was about $8,000 more than the engineer's estimate, but that's more than made up for the difference in the base bid, if that's maybe what you're asking.
Just want that clarified. Yep. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Matt. Kathy Katie's not able to attend today, so we'll go to item number 4, which is review and approve the soil management plan for the Public Safety Center from Northeast Technical Services.
Okay, thank you. This is part of the overall project. Thank you. Move to approve by Councillor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
By Councillor Johnson. Is there further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 5 is the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting held on May 15th, 2024. The first item was to discuss the acceptance of a donation of a building located on 121 Chestnut Street, and Councillor Johnson is the chairperson of Buildings and Grounds.
I'm sorry. Councillor Johnson, your committee.
Yes, thank you. So the Old Holland Hotel, is on Chestnut Street, 121, and basically the building is unusable. So we will be, it is the recommendation of the committee to direct the staff to obtain the demolition and asbestos removal determination, and then move forward with it from there. This is not accepting the building at this time. It's just doing the groundwork to see how we can use it, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Will there be any cost to the city to do this? I guess looking into?
Clearly no cost for us to do the homework just to see what we can do.
And if I might, the current owner has had some of that estimate work done, so we will, basically he was just going to communicate that with us and we can look at it further.
Okay, and then the other question that I had, I don't know if you guys discussed this, but does the IRRB require a redevelopment plan in order to assist with the demolition or abatement of asbestos?
Yes, and that's where the problem lies, is they would really like to just leave it as a vacant lot and use it as a storage and put a shed on there, but that's not enough of a redevelopment for IRRR to assist. So I think maybe it's a conversation that if the city has with IRRR, that if we can figure out some way to create a plan or whatever it may be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And we don't want to shed on Chestnut Street, right? I mean, so, and then in addition to that, the Councillor Johnson's committee, there's some investment also being made on the part of the owner of the property as well. So this is a good motion moving forward. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We skipped the item about the log cabin. That individual is not present. We did have the conversation with the Teen Center and having that property go over to the Lyric Center for the Arts. I am on the board. However, I will not be financially benefiting from anything that happens there. So I am comfortable moving forward. Part of the challenge that we're having right now is that it is a city building and the city would be responsible for the steam conversion of that building. However, if the Lyric owned it, there's a lot more there's many more funding opportunities for that building that would allow for both the old Teen Center and then the usable part of the Lyric to be on the same systems for heating and cooling. It was moved and supported in the committee meeting to allow staff to prepare a quit claim deed to complete the property transfer of the Tennis for All building at 516 Chestnut Street, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Johnson to author. Yeah,
what?
The Teen Center.
What did I say?
Yeah, Teen Center, yeah.
Wow, I need more coffee, thank you.
So the motion is for the Teen Center. It's been moved, and is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion? I just have one item, and then I'll move over to the Councilor Paulson and the Councilor Motley. So the question is, if we turn this over, and I know we've been thinking about doing this for a long time, and giving it to them just makes sense to move to expand the Lyric footprint there. My question is that if we do the quick claim deed and then we work with them about the steam conversion, if the city is responsible for the steam conversion, I'd like to know how much that would be. If we're giving it to the Lyric Theater, do we have to additionally spend some more money for the steam conversion as part of that quick claim deed or not?
No, the idea is that once the Lyric has possession of the building, we can find other funding not tied to the city to do the conversion and what we need to do. If it's the city building, the city would have to find that stuff. I can anticipate we're going to be working with the city, but I don't anticipate asking the city for anything other than the building at this point.
Thank you, Councilor. Further clarification, Councilor Johnson. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson, then over to Councilor Motley.
Thank you, Mayor. I felt that we had some money set aside in our budget for the teen center. Is that correct, Sherry?
Wasn't there 10,000 in there?
I will have to check because I know we did a lot of cutting last fall.
Yeah, I didn't know if we cut. I was just looking for my budget. I didn't know if we cut that or not.
I will have to double check.
If we didn't cut that, and that's still in the budget, we would not need to expend that, so that would go into the city general fund.
It's right now in the general fund if it is budgeted.
If it is budgeted in there. Okay, so I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Motley.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is that teen center worth anything as we're just giving it away? Is there any value to this building, or is it more?
I think what we originally did, and I'll refer to the board member and to Councilor Beyondich as well. I'll defer. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. We did have this discussion a while ago on this building, and it has been used primarily for the Lyric and the Teen Center. So in light of the steam conversion and the cost of that, if they are willing to take it, I'm okay with it.
And then to add on to that, Councilor Motley, way back in the day, we owned the building. It was turned into a teen center. We still own the building. There was some, financial investments a little bit. They ran a coffee shop out of there. The school did. And then the intent was to turn it over to the teen center as then operated. Well, the teen center then had folded, and that became back to the city. And so there's been an ongoing discussion about how could best benefit from that particular building. And then, of course, their Lyric Theater, as they did their hundreds of thousands of dollars expansion, was part of their request moving forward. So that's where we're at today.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does that make sense, Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. And that is also part of what, moving forward, the Lyric Center does provide a lot of services for youth. And so it really is a natural progress that there's still a lot of youth programming. In the last play, we had 50-some kids between the ages of 8 and 12, and they're currently doing, the high school kids are currently doing Mary Poppins. So that space is actually still probably being more effectively used now for after-school programming than it was in the later years of the teen center with the advent of everybody having their own gaming systems and stuff. So I think, to answer your question directly, for me, it's about the long-term savings of not having to be responsible for it as a city anymore.
Thank you. It has been moved and supported to authorize the execution of a quick claim deed to transfer ownership of the Teen Center building located at 516 Chestnut Street, parcel ID number 090-0010-05030 to the Laurentian Arts. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll have our staff attorney prepare that document. Thank you. Next item.
Apologize for that. Next item was proposing additional advertising for Iron Trail Motors Event Center. The theory here is to put lettering on the bottom of the glass from where you're sitting looking down in a very light colored applique. We did get a couple of quotes from local businesses to provide that lettering. I also suggested maybe just investing in a commercial cricket as a city and having our staff do it in-house. But the motion is to approve Brian Silber to present advertising proposal to Glass Arena. And he can bring it today. Are you ready today, Brian? So I would move to allow Brian to come up and give his presentation.
Thank you. Before we get into a motion to accept, Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director, to give us a little rundown of the plan moving forward for advertising on the glass. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. And we are on page 25 of the packet for anybody who is interested. This idea was brought to us earlier this year by Mr. Greg Lency after he had visited another hockey arena. Unfortunately, at that time, we were in the middle of hockey season, going full bore, and so we just backburnered it. And after Councilor Johnson encouraged citizens to bring forward new ideas for revenue or saving money, Mr. Lency came to my office and reminded me of this project. So we started working on it. On page 27 of your packet, you will see some examples of what this would look like. Essentially, it looks like etched glass. The large letters are 3 inches big, so it does not obstruct any view, and it is not etched glass. It is actually a sticker that is applied on the outside of the glass. You can read it from the stand. So this would be a great opportunity for a small business, civic organization to be able to advertise in the arena, or for family members to pay tribute to loved ones that are either currently playing hockey or have formerly played hockey in the arenas. We have set up the prices for a 1-year agreement would be $300. A 3-year agreement would be $250 a year. Also have the opportunity for 1 line of lettering, which the letters are 3 inches tall, or we have the option for 2 or 3 lines of lettering, which 1 line is 3 inches tall and the other 2 lines are 1 inches tall. Those would be put in the at the ends of the arena, in the area that we do not have bleachers right behind, so that it does not obstruct any more view than necessary. Also, we would need to be communicating with any of our potential clients that would be purchasing these areas that they will not have the glass in the arena all year long, because in the Toyota arena, that is the part of the dasher boards and the glass that is removed during the summer. So there'll be some communication with potential customers about that, just the same way that we do with our dasher boards that come out for the summer. We are proposing this for both the Chevy and the Toyota arena. Obviously, we have more glass available to do this in the Toyota arena than the Chevy arena, because we would only be doing one side of the Chevy arena because spectators are only on one side. We have presented in your packet on page 25 and 26 a sample agreement. This is very similar to the agreement that we use for our dasher boards already, so it had been vetted by our city attorney previously. We've just changed from dasher boards to arena glass in this document. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, both myself and the Park and Rec Commission would recommend approval of this so that we can start to try to sell these. And at the end of the day, if we were to sell all of the spots, it could generate an additional $30,000 of revenue. I am putting in my budget for 2025 $25,000 of anticipated revenue generation from this.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. My only question is, that's a great idea. It's an additional advertisement. Doesn't impact the, the spectator experience at the Entrepreneur Mornings event center. My only question to you is that, is there an amendment or an addendum or a codicil that restricts what kind of advertising that can go on there? You to making political statements, those kind of things. I mean, what are the restrictions, or if any, about these advertisements?
On page 26 of your packet, item number 12, the following advertising will not be allowed. Advertising that displays, advocates, or promotes the use of tobacco or alcohol products. No signs advocating particular political philosophy, issue, party, or particular candidate. No signs advertising, promoting any business or services that is prohibited in other existing agreements that the city has entered into. And signage should be in good taste and suitable for viewing by children. So we have covered all of those concerns in addition to the concerns of our naming right agreement or any other agreements that the city has entered into that would limit.
And thank you. The reason I asked that question is for the edification of the general public. I read through the packet. It's I think it's a good contract moving forward. It gives us some ability to control what advertisement goes up there at the same time, generating the revenue we need moving forward. So thank you for that, Brian. I fully support it. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian, and thank you to Greg Lency for this great idea, and thank you guys for taking the time to put it together and then implement it. I just have one question, Brian, or actually two. So on the actual agreement, we've got, you check the boxes. So page 25, you check the boxes, Iron Trail Toyota Arena or Iron Trail Chevrolet. Would it be advantageous to maybe add like a dual, like to do both, a checkbox and maybe 150 more or whatever for like the 3-year? So
sure, yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying like, so you get, I'm just wondering if you may not fill Chevrolet as fast. So maybe if you do like a little enticement.
Buy one, get the second at half off.
Or something like that, just a suggestion. And then the other notation on page 26, item 12, could we also, I understand that it probably is covered suitable for viewing by children, but could we also say advertising that displays, advocates or promotes the use of tobacco, marijuana, or alcohol products, since now marijuana is legal in the state of Minnesota?
Is that in there?
Marijuana is not. Marijuana. We could add that word. To kill two birds at one stone, if you make said motion, we could add that word to both agreements, this and the Dasher Board agreement.
Okay. Otherwise, I think this is exciting. It's a great opportunity, and I will be one of your first customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, or looking for a motion or action from the council at the committee of the whole meeting? Councilor Motley.
Do we have to make a motion to add the marijuana in, or can you just add it in?
The motion hasn't been made yet, so we can make the motion with that addition.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve this advertising.
Councilor Motley makes a motion to approve the advertising with the codicil that we add the wording marijuana to one of the sections in that contract. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And I will just bring up that Brian brought up that there's been a lot of positive feedback from coaches and parents about the conditions of the fields, the baseball fields, and that is a direct result of the capital investment we did in the infield equipment that was purchased last year. So I just want to let people know that the money we are spending is being used appropriately and and there are definite positive effects moving forward. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Britt?
Thank you. Item number 6 is the Street and Alley Committee meeting held on May 14th, 2024, and Councilor Freely, thank you. Was the chairperson.
Yeah, Councilor Freely, with the membership, Councilor Freely being the chair, and members of the committee is Councilor Motley and Mayor Cuffey. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, the first agenda item was to discuss essentially the roads that are surrounding the new North Star Elementary School that's being built on Fifth Avenue. And the consensus of the committee was that we should mobilize to try and complete the roads around it so that the school will be open with milled and overlaid roads. 2nd Street is particularly damaged or well worn for that matter. I know that there's infrastructure under there that needs to be replaced at some point, but not necessarily immediately. So the consensus of the committee was we should move forward with a recommendation to seek milling and overlay to prepare the roads, which would be 2nd Street, a portion of 6th Avenue from 3rd Street to 2nd Street, and then all of 4th Street, so that they have finished roads for the opening of the school. The second agenda item was to initiate a meeting with the school to request participation and funding for the overlay project, and we're going to be moving forward with that conversation.
Excuse me, Councilor Freely, maybe we should take one at a time, do a motion on each one.
Oh, my bad. Okay, sorry.
If you would, thank you. So your recommendation from your committee is to direct staff to present a plan for the mill overlay for the 500 block of 2nd Street South, 500 block of 4th Street South, and 6th Avenue from 2nd Street South to 3rd Street South.
Correct. Thank you.
That is the recommendation from the committee.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilor Paul. Motion by Councilor Motley, supported by Mayor Cuffey. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. When you're talking about doing like the 2nd Street South, will that impact the homeowners that live there? I mean, dollar-wise, what would it be?
The mill overlay there's not an assessment on that, is there?
Last year when we did the mill and overlays, we did not do.
Yeah.
And part of our plan is the second one down. Part of our plan was to work with a contractor that's working there and try to figure out a way to get this covered.
Okay, so the homeowners wouldn't be impacted.
We have not usually impacted them with the mill and overlay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich.
I think there was some discussion as to how we will be able to share costs. I know you had a conversation with Mr. Avenen from Kraus Anderson, and second on my discussion here is going to be initiating a meeting with school officials as well to see if we can get shared costs involved with regarding the completion of that project.
Thank you. So it has been moved and supported by the committee to direct staff to develop a mill overlay plan for those three streets surrounding the school. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Freely.
And secondly, we will need to initiate a motion to begin meeting with the school to request participation for funding for that overlay project around the school.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Freely.
The third agenda item was to discuss the swap of ownership between the county and the city for the ownership of Hoover Road and Borgen Road with St. Louis County. St. Louis County would be taking over the ownership of Borgen Road, which is about a 1 3/4 mile stretch of road. And we would be taking over the maintenance of Hoover Road, which is about a 3/4 mile stretch of road. And we would have to have further conversation with regard to undedicated state mileage. And I would like to have a motion made for the staff to make a recommendation on how to determine that undedicated state aid mileage.
So you're entertaining a motion to approve the swap between Hoover Road and Borgen Road with St. Louis County and allow or direct city staff to make recommendations on the undedicated state aid mileage.
Correct.
Okay, looking for a motion.
Moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Paulson, supported by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
So to the Midway residents on Borgen Road, this is to your benefit. This means that when Borgen Road is going to be redone somewhere in the future by the county, you will not be assessed your property. So it's actually a good thing. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and I think if I'm looking for some clarification in that regard, if we were to take over, this swap moves forward and St. Louis County takes over the Borgen Road, I think if they use the transportation costs, 1% transportation fees to replace Borgen Road, please correct me if I'm wrong, Britt, that falls under that auspices of the St. Louis County where they wouldn't be assessing person's property. However, that would be done in like 2027 or 2028. But if the city was going to participate in the project and contribute to the overlay of the project of that mileage, that would be a mill overlay or whatever. Would that be an assessed part of the roadway system should we decide to do it in 2025? I think the motion was to have them do that and then do it under their transportation project when they can do that. Is that correct? So thank you, Councilor Motley, for that clarification. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson and then over to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't know if Matt had the information on this or if I just remember being in the meeting with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, but I think we're going to gain a few more miles of state aid road with this swap. Is that correct? Or what?
Mr. Reed?
Good morning. Yes, we will gain a little bit of mileage that we can reallocate elsewhere because we are giving up a longer road for a shorter road. So we will have some mileage to play with. That was what Councilor Friedlieb was referring to as to that unallocated mileage. That's on my to-do list to go through and try to figure out where we might be able to reallocate that mileage.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson, was that your question or did you have something else?
No, I had something else. I just would like to remind the residents of Borgen Road that when and if that becomes a county road, it then falls under county rules when it comes to the use of ATVs and other vehicles accessing county roads. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And part of that discussion with the county was to maintain that as a ATV roadway, in fact, make an improvement in that regard as well. So thank you for that, Councilor Johnson. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The other item that we discussed was approving the capital improvement plan for the proposed street reconstruction project for 2628. I think a year and a half or so ago, the late great Councilor Baraboo, along with Matt Reed and Jim Rosfit, did tour the city and prioritized a list of, I think it was originally 15 some odd projects that needed to be addressed in the city. And we're moving forward with consideration of the continuation of those projects over the course of the next couple of years. And so we would need a motion to approve the capital improvement plan for the proposed street construction project for 2628 through 28.
And the motion here is just to approve the proposed.
Correct. Moving forward.
Moving forward. Thank you.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Councilor Motley. Is there support? By Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Friedlieb?
And lastly, in our discussion, it was to direct staff to create a prioritization list for those projects or streets that need mill and overlay for the 2025 and to seek funding for such project. And I don't know if, Matt, you can specify with regard to those particular roads we were talking about specific to just mill and overlay.
Don't know that we have that list prepared yet at this point. There's a number of roads that were talked about that day. Jim's got some ideas, so I think he's talked to some of you about it as well. So we'll be putting that together here in the next probably 2 weeks to a month that we'll come back and share that with everybody and let you know what we're thinking.
And that was above and beyond those roads or surrounding the schools.
Yeah, those are the roads that we think the infrastructure will last another 10 years plus, so we can get some use out of the roads.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Looking for council action.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next agenda item, well, that wasn't on our agenda item, but I'll address it since it's relative to street.
Let's do it.
Unless you wish to.
No.
Essentially,
Britt Nye will
Sugar
be
Shack provides music entertainment Thursday nights throughout the summer. Quite a popular venue, and they're seeking to have the blocking off of 3rd Street for those street shows during the summer months from 4:30 to 10:30. That's pending the scheduling of the music acts, but she would like at least approval of the potential for closing those roads.
Thank you. Britt?
To clarify, it's actually the 100 block of 3rd Avenue North that she needs blocked off.
3rd Avenue North.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. We'll make that clarification in the minutes. 3rd Avenue North.
I will move to direct staff to work with her for that.
Moved by Councillor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councillor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, we had a request from the police department regarding the approval of the annual Law Enforcement Special Olympics torch run on Tuesday, June 18th, which I think starts at the east end of Chestnut Street, comes down Chestnut Street, turns right on 4th Avenue, and concludes at the Veterans Memorial Park. And they're seeking approval for that event and oversight of the route that they'll be taking.
Okay, thank you. Motion?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councillor Motley. Is there support? By Councillor Beyondich. Further discussion? I'm glad it's a shorter route this year because I don't need an oxygen station then start and finish. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Councillor Freely. Item number 13.
Mayor, if I might.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Councillor Johnson.
I'm going to bring this up now because I see that it was discussed at the meeting with the drainage issues in the cities. We're supposed to have a major rain event over the next few days. I'm just wondering if there's any particular places we should be watching close with the 2+ inches coming over the next couple days. Any significant areas of concern?
I think one of them we've had, Jim, if you would be willing to, if you don't need to come up, one of the big areas is down by the Apple Tree Learning Center, down in that Veterans Park area where it really floods even on regular rain times. And if we do have a significant rain event, that may be a cause for concern and to watch. Jim, any other issues you might have with respect to that or any other pockets of issues that may result in some flooding?
We are aware of some situations. We are working this morning to make sure all our pumps are up and running, ready to go, just so we are prepared for that. The 13th Street, where the street project started, they did start a pump system there last night. Believe it or not, I got a call that they said someone left the excavator running and it was actually a pump running. So those pumps are going to run continuous for about 2 months. I just want to make the public aware of that. We do still have that lift station intact, and we're going to leave it intact for now until this storm passes and we see how the pump system handles. They do have telecommunication that will make them aware if a pump fails and another one kicks on. We did have a street, we lost to storm sewer on a street off of 2nd Avenue on Sunday.
3rd Street.
Pardon me?
3rd Street.
Yes, sir. We did get that repaired yesterday. We're backfilling it this morning. Like I say, everything else, we do have pumps on standby and we will monitor it.
Thank you, Jim. Anything further, Councillor Johnson?
And I appreciate you coming and talking about that. I think that's one of the unseen things that happens is that you are always prepared and looking forward. I did see the Facebook post about the engine running last night and was amused because it didn't say when or where or how. So knowing that and knowing that that's going to be happening from time to time is helpful for the community. So thank you for your work and thank you for being proactive, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Okay, next item, Britt, on the personnel.
Thank you. Item number 13 is approve the resolution to hire a library associate youth services.
So moved.
A move to approve the hiring of the youth services associate for the Virginia Public Library. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
The only reason I will not be supporting this is because I do feel our budget for the library is too high. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? I think I just have one item. I know there's been a lot of pressure on the departments with respect to the amount of personnel we have, depending, it doesn't make any difference which department we're in. There is cause for concern on the part of the public, whether it has legitimate or not. But it's the optics of who we hire, what kind of people we hire, and what is the need to hire these personnel. And there are some areas that we're taking serious consideration. We have to do that over the summer months. The library, there's been a lot of angst from people in the public say the library has too much staff. You can argue one way or the other whether that's valid or not. But for me, you have to pick the kind of people you hire. And what kind of impact is that person going to have in that particular job? Whether it's public works, police and fire, or whatever it is, you have to pick what personnel is you need to run the programs that you want to run in the city of Virginia. And there's been a significant amount of support for the youth services portion of the library. So that's the one position that's being requested to be filled. So is there any further discussion with respect to the youth services of the library? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. It concerns me that this has come back again. This is the third, fourth, I don't know, times specifically about this. We authorized it. We have to have more discussion. My concern is that we keep talking numbers and there's too many people, and those are irrelevant when it comes to what happens at the library and what service it provides to the community. And when I talk about the community, I'm talking about a majority of the Eastern Iron Range. People from White Lakes, from Cook, from Chisholm, they all come here, especially for our children's programming, especially because of the phenomenal groundwork and base that Stephanie has set up for these events. I can tell you with certainty that many of our events attract more people than the events in Duluth. And when you look at the percentage of people that are coming to us compared to the overall population of the city of Duluth, our library is probably one of the best in the state. I would say that as someone who engages over there. Just talking numbers, and it's too many people. We have an aging building. One of our budget items that's in the library budget that's not in other library budgets is the maintenance person, the public works person, more or less, that does all the stuff there. Our library is the heart of our community. It is the most utilized building by people from all over, I would say, including the Iron Trail Motors Event Center when it comes to the general public. And that we keep trying to cut because it's the easiest place to cut, because it's the easiest place for the funding. It's unreal. I just cannot fathom. I would encourage everybody in this room and anybody who thinks we don't need a library to go spend a couple hours there once a week for the next 3 weeks. Just sit and watch what happens. Go during children's playtime. Go during one of the adult programs. The library is an essential part of this community. When people are looking to move into communities, when they're looking for homes, when they're looking to where do they want to have their forever homes, library is one of the first things they look at. They want to know that their families are going to have access to resources, unlimited resources, not handpicked, chosen for a certain side or a certain point of view, so that we have to continue to have these discussions about whether or not we even need our library. One, yes, we need it by state statute. We have to have a library, but we should want a library in this town. We should want a place that's safe, secure, and open to everybody. When you step into the library doors, you are an equal citizen. There's no class, there's no economic status. It's a place of knowledge. And I'm very passionate about this, and I really wish that we could get past whatever this angst is about our library specifically and understand of what a huge part and a huge draw it is for our community. I know people come from Cook to stop by and pay. I just had this discussion with Jody last week. People will reserve their books in Virginia from Cook, and when they come to Virginia, they'll stop at the library, they'll go to a restaurant, they'll do their shopping, and they'll go home. So it's part of our economic impact as well. So I wholeheartedly and will continue to support positions at the library because of its importance to the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. I don't think there's anybody that I've talked to that doesn't want a library. I think we all support that library. It's just that how it's staffed, and everybody has their opinions. They've come to the council meeting about that. So just to put it in a nutshell, we're going to make a decision today about that to move to the city council for final approval. So I think it bodes well for the discussion at this point in time. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do believe that this position has not gone back and forth. I believe that this is a position that after Stephanie had given her notice that our library director, Jody, had maybe combined, Jody, was this the one where we combined a few different things? This was not. Okay, so I don't know that this has come back and forth because Stephanie just resigned, and so we're just filling this. As much as I'm aware of the personnel committee side, we have not gone back and forth on this. And I guess additionally, I would say we are, I guess, what would it's charterly or statutorily obligated to fund our library from a certain percentage of our net tax capacity. And our net tax capacity for 2024 was $770,000. So we are statutorily obligated to fund our library to that, at least at that capacity. Now, I don't know how net tax capacity is arrived at, and I will click on that to maybe get more information on the formula, but that's a criteria to be a part of the Arrowhead library system. With that being said, if we go through our budget discussions and things change, we do have the ability that for reorganization or restructuring to decrease positions or whatever that might look like in the future. So I'm comfortable moving this forward because it is replacing a position that has always been staffed, and it is important that we do have a children's library, regardless of what we think about on the budget side of the library, their budget being too large or too small, what have you. So I'm comfortable moving forward with this, also knowing that if we do some reorganization, that it can in fact be done at the library level as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
And I just wanted to clarify to anybody, I'm not against the library. I am just looking at the numbers, and I know Jody does a good job at the library. So also to Councilor Johnson's speaking earlier, you mentioned the cities of Cook, White Lakes, and Chisholm. It's my understanding the taxpayers of Virginia fund the library, not either of these three communities. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it has been moved and supported to fill the Youth Services Library position. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Motley?
No.
Friedlieb?
Aye.
Paulson?
Aye.
Beyondich? Johnson?
Aye.
Baranzelli? Cuffey?
Aye. Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Next item.
Thank you. Item number 14 is the two vacant positions that we have. We had accepted applications for a period of time of 2 weeks, and then we had to extend it due to the number of applications that we received, which was very few. So now we still have the mechanic position open and the accounting clerk 1 position. For the mechanic, we received 1 application. For the accounting clerk 1, we did receive quite a few. So I just need determination on how we want to proceed with these two positions.
Thank you. One clarification: how many applicants for the mechanic position?
1.
Okay, thank you. And a number for the accounting clerk 1 position. Thank you.
I will move that direct staff to continue the process of hiring both positions.
Okay, Councilor Johnson moves to authorize staff to move with the hiring process for the mechanic and the accounting clerk 1 position. Is there support? Is there support? Is there support?
All support for
motion. Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there further discussion? Councilor Paulson, Councilor Freelieb.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a point of order that they're listed separately, so I believe we need to take them separately.
Sure, let's do it separately. Thank you for that point of order. Let's start with the mechanic position.
Move to continue the process.
Council Johnson moves to approve to continue with the process for the hiring of a 5th mechanic under Section 14A. Is there support for that?
All support for further discussion.
Support by Councilor Freelieb for further discussion. Councilor Freelieb.
You know, I guess we've talked about, we're in a, you know, I don't consider it a crisis per se, but we are in, like, you know, in a situation where we have to be mindful of continuing in the same mode of operation that we have, and potentially getting the city further and further into debt. And so when we talked previously about how do you look at reducing costs in a city, there's multiple ways, and we've already done that in varying departments and programs. But personnel is one of the most expensive things that you have in a city that you have to pay for. So we've talked about, like, when a position is vacated, we might want to consider the attrition of that position, and look to reorganize with existing positions to try and fill that role. I don't know how realistic that is, and so I guess, you know, and I don't always want to put Jim on the spot, but I guess, like, I'd like to have some primary source knowledge in terms of, like, what kind of pickle that would put you in, so to speak, in the event that that person that was there doing work would no longer be there. Can you mobilize with existing staff to do the volume of work that's necessary? Or, I don't know if you're willing to speak on that, Jim, to us, or would you need the mechanics to do that? I mean, that's what I'm missing, is, like, I don't know, like, the impact that would have on the city and the resources that we avail to even department heads to get work accomplished that needs to be done in the city. So we don't have a mechanic's position that's not been filled for a while. Have you been able to mobilize to get things accomplished with the existing staff, and would you continue to be able to do so?
We did have this discussion a couple weeks ago, and I actually believe I said that I would withdraw from hiring a mechanic right now, and maybe we could look at it down the line. I just want to be aware also, we're running a lot of outdated, expired equipment. We're doing the best with what we have. I mean, we've got pickup trucks from the 90s yet in our fleet. They don't have boxes on them. They don't have tailgates on them. A lot of our other equipment's that. A lot of our equipment is to the point where they're not making the parts for that equipment anymore either. When COVID showed up, a lot of those assembly lines shut down for those older items, and to find the replacement parts now for them, it's not happening. We're going to run into a situation we're going to have to either buy equipment or we're going to have to eliminate services. But at this time, I'm willing to stay with, let's maybe revisit this in a year. You know, I'm here to try to help out your budget also.
So your recommendation is not to cut the position, but not to hire at this time and to hold this position in abeyance until some future time where we can bring it back up.
Yes.
I think Councilor Freelieb, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. And I think one of the things that we miss, and I appreciate your candor, Jim, about what happens down at Public Works is when I've done my ride-alongs, I know that one of the things the lead mechanic down there is he doesn't schedule a whole lot for Monday morning because over the weekend, police cars and fire trucks break. And they actually plan for that every Monday morning, whether it's I forget what it was, a timing chain or something in the day I did my police ride along. So our folks down there are being used as efficiently as possible. So if we ever have a weekend where, 3 of our cars get broken, that whole Monday is going to be spent on just public safety vehicles, which pushes everything back. And I think, again, it goes to show the quality of our staff. We have golf carts that have been there for 20 plus years. We have 30-year-old equipment, and that goes to show the professionalism and the skill level of our mechanic staff. And to understand that what they do is an integral part of what the city does is amazing. And I will withdraw my motion based on the recommendation of the department head, simply because we do need to remember that those folks need time off. They also get sick. And in a perfect storm, we could have one mechanic working for several weeks on all the equipment, depending on what happens. So I don't know how many of our other staff have the ability to be called in on that, be assigned for the day as a mechanic, but I think that's something that we really need to make sure we're aware of and utilizing too, that if we need a mechanic, folks that have that skill level may need to be reassigned for the day to make sure that our city is running as efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnson. So Councillor Johnson is rescinding his motion, which was the motion was on the floor for to continue with the hiring process for this mechanic. Now that motion has to be rescinded. The person who seconded that motion agrees to rescind. So there is no motion on the floor. Looking for any additional motion with respect to the mechanic's position. So maybe a motion could be made. Either we just leave it the way it is, or we make a motion to stop the process and hold this position in abeyance and bring it up at some future time. So looking for a motion. If not,
I would make that motion, since Jim alluded that would be the necessary.
He would like to revisit it in the event that, yeah, okay. So a motion by Councillor Freelieb to not to hire in the mechanic position at a time, but to hold that vacancy for further discussion at some future time. Is there support for that?
Would support that with a 6-month time frame.
Okay, support that by Councillor Johnson. He's asking for amendment to a 6-month time frame before it gets revisited. If that's all right with the motion to revisit that within 6 months.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Thank you, Jim. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Motley.
So hypothetically, Jim, speaking, miraculously tomorrow, we lose another mechanic out of the blue. Emergency vehicle goes down. Do we ever bring our vehicles to Lundgren's?
Warranty.
It could be any location. A lot of it's part availability. A lot of it's specialty stuff. Vehicles and that now.
Random question. Do you guys do timing chains down there? Okay, thank you. I just randomly, because I go to Evelyn a lot and sometimes I do see our vehicles there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Motley. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm comfortable with the motion. I'm just not comfortable with the time frame, because that puts us into November when we have to cement and solidify our budget. When do we have to do our budget?
Mayor?
Yeah. Sherry?
Thank you, Councillor. We do have, it's September 30th to get your primary levy in. Did I say primary? Preliminary levy. So
preliminary budget to submit, and then we have a final submission.
That's pretty much the hardcore there, and then you can.
So I think I just have an issue with the 6 months, because if we solidify a budget and then revisit this, we probably would not have allocation in our budget if we have that discussion budgetarily wise. So I would probably vote no because of the time frame given on this item.
Thank you. I think the motion was within the 6-month period, not after 6 months. Is that correct, Councilor Johnson, or not?
Yes, Mayor, my point was to not let this fall off our radar and not talk about it ever again. I want a minimum or a 6-month or less, absolutely.
Yeah, within that time frame. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley, and then back over to Councilor Paulson on this matter.
Does that mean that that has to be a budgeted item for the 2025 levy?
Means it has to be a discussed item.
Discussed item for it.
So it'll come back before the 6 months,
process.
and we'll have to talk about this all over again in September, or before possibly.
All positions will be looking at that, including this one that has not been filled within this time frame during the budget process. This particular position, which is open, is the motion is to revisit it within 6 months. So that'll be within the process of preparing our budget, whether or not we want to include this or not. But it's for the purposes of discussion under the motion.
So how does that going forward with the one applicant for this mechanic position, Britt?
We would just notify them at this time we're not filling the position and to watch for future openings.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Motley. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess that's where I was kind of going with our reorganization or our restructuring conversations that we will be having in the future. Say if garbage is one of the things that might impact our conversations, that would mean maybe not needing to fill a mechanic spot because there's less equipment to possibly deal with. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but those are just conversations that we'll have to be having coming up forward. But again, I'm not comfortable with putting that time frame on it until we have our full budget discussion at that time. So I'll vote no because I don't like necessarily like the time frame on it.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Friedlieb,
Aye.
Paulson,
No.
Beyondich, Johnson,
Aye.
Baranzelli, Huffy,
Aye.
Motley.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Now the next item, Britt.
I will move the interview process and hiring process for the accounting clerk one.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve continuing the resolution to hire the county clerk 1 position. Is there support?
I'll support for further discussion.
Support by Councilor Friedlieb for further discussion. Councilor Friedlieb.
So again, similarly, this is a position that's been vacated. I know that auditors typically annually tell you that you have to have separation of duties. This is a position that allows us to at least meet that standard. I don't necessarily believe that that's an absolute necessity. It's something that they recommend and encourage. And that's just going on my experience in other areas that I was involved in, accounting and budgeting in school districts. We always got dinged for not having enough people looking in and on oversight. So, I mean, it's just a standard operating formality that's put in the report, in my opinion. And so, again, I guess I'd like to, have some firsthand primary source knowledge in regard to, is it feasible? Is it possible? How can it be done in that office to, mix and match the duties of the people that are existing in there? Or is there any other way that you can have those duties reduced or added to others to be able to get the job done without necessarily hiring that person back at the expense that we incur for that position?
Okay, thank you, Councilor Friedlieb. I'm going to refer to first our finance director, Sherry Erickson, and then maybe over to Britt, our city administrator. Sherry, with respect to the auditor's report, the separation of duties has always been an issue at the end of our audit, requiring that. We had an accounting clerk 1, she moved up to accounting clerk 3. Now we're hiring a recommendation to hire a clerk 1. How is that going to impact how our finance department works, number one, as Councilor Freely was asking, and number two, how does it not comply, or is it recommended that, by the auditor? How does that work?
Mayor,
Jerry.
Councilor, thank you. Interesting enough, yesterday I did get an email from our auditing firm, and one of the biggest questions is, how is the vacancy position being filled? And yes, they're waiting to see what's going to happen there. From a physical and workload standpoint, I'm taking on some of this job in addition to my other 3 hats I wear. The other two ladies that are in there, they're taking it on. We're splitting up as much as we can. There's some things that we're going to have to play catch up with just because we just don't have time. We already reduced it by going to an accounting clerk 1. And yes, if we don't find it in the 7 applicants, my thing is don't hire unless we find a qualified applicant. We'll have to look at other options, I guess. I mean, there is options out there, but right now we're swimming. We're just trying to keep our head above water with the audit, and we got a couple audits. We got a revenue recapture audit. We have our regular audit. So we're just short-staffed, period. We're short-staffed. And the key is to try to find an accountant that has governmental accounting.
And so the other question was the everyday, the day, not just the audit report, moving on that, but it's the everyday, day-to-day operations that, how's that impacted without replacing this county clerk 1? You indicated you accepting additional duties and responsibilities. How does that affect the day-to-day operations for the year?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, Mayor, and that, we're taking one day at a time. That's how we're doing it. And then 1 week at a time. So I'll have to say the ladies in the accounting office have been more than, it's a good thing I have them. That's all I can say. They've been very good with, hey, I'll take that on here, I'll help with that. We have some things we're struggling with right now because we're not part of our everyday operations, such as the fixed asset account group, entering any of our assets that we purchased over the year, backwards and forwards, bringing that up to date, and we're learning it as we go. So there's a learning curve too, plus you have to do your day-to-day operations with your other jobs.
Does that answer your question? Give you a little clarity, Councilor Freely?
And it does. And it's so I guess what I'm seeing is that we actually advertising it as a clerk 1 was a cost-saving measure to find the person necessary to get the job done, but at a less cost than what we were paying originally.
Right, correct. Because I actually took some of the job duties away, and it's down to a clerk 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on the floor? Oh, yes. We do have a motion and support to move forward with the process of hiring an accounting clerk 1. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I guess, Sherry, thank you for that information. I still think we're kind of prematurely filling this maybe cart before the horse, since we have not had our budget discussions moving forward, and what possibly contract services out might look like. So question that I have, Sherry, is if we contracted payroll out, and that would free up some time in the downstairs in that office, would that give them, because contracting payroll, I think I've looked into that, anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 annually to contract payroll out to a bookkeeping service, which a lot of companies and firms do that. They don't do that in-house. So I looked into what that might cost, and then saving of an employee expenditure on the accounting clerk 1 side. If we did do that with payroll, would that free up some hours to focus on the things that we're behind in if that specific duty were taken away and contracted out?
That is an option, Mayor.
Yes, Sherry?
That is an option, Counselor. But we have 4 unions, and 2 of the unions, police and fire, have really complex payroll. So we would have to work extensively with whatever firm we would be looking at to see if they could even do, and just how much time would they be doing, and we would be actually trying to help them do their job, if you know what I mean. It could be counterproductive, is what I'm saying. If we end up doing most of the data entry and then shipping it off, it is something we'll have to look at. We'll definitely have to look at.
And I think that's where my comfort level is before we would actually execute the hiring of Clerk 1, that we have those conversations, look at what is out there. Technology now is light years ahead of where it used to be, and I don't know, I can't say I'm confident we would find that out, but I would like to explore that option before we go ahead and add a new employee to our payroll permanently, that is. And then the discussion with separation of duties, we get dinged on that every year, just like any other small community, probably including Hibbing does, for that separation of duty. But that doesn't impact us any way other than one of the 10 items, bullet points that they recommend in our auditor's report, unless it affects our bond rating to some capacity. But so far at this point, I don't think it's really ever impacted our bond rating. After I've spoken to a few different people, I don't think that impacts bond rating specifically, even though it's stated as one of the items that will affect your bond rating. But in the years past, we have always gotten dinged on this separation of duties issue. So I'm not too concerned about that. But what I am concerned about is adding an employee with all the added expenses given our current budget situation, and before having those conversations regarding outsourcing for other, specific things like payroll in our budget conversations moving forward. So I wouldn't support this motion at this time, because I just feel like it's putting the cart before the horse before we investigate our options and come back to the table with what we've all decided as a council that we would be restructuring and reorganizing. So I feel like it would be irresponsible to move forward at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Councilor Johnson, I don't think we're being irresponsible with all due respect. I think we're just being cognizant of what our needs are potentially. Like the mechanics position, maybe I feel the same way with respect to, let's see what our budget holds out, see what's going on with that, see if our budget process will accommodate an accounting clerk 1 position. Not that we're not filling it, it's just we're holding it in abeyance. That's the kind of the way I look at it, just with the mechanics position as well. And it's prudent for us to move forward with as we discuss our budget. There's a lot of big decisions we're going to have to make moving forward. So that's kind of the way I look at it as well. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, is this a currently budgeted position?
Yes, for this year.
And was it budgeted this year at the accounting 3 level or
Yes.
the accounting 1?
At level 3.
Thank you. I appreciate, Sherry, you're reiterating the shortage of staff. I think we're taking the humanity out of this just a little bit. We are very lucky that our staff downstairs are willing and able to do more work. And I don't remember saying to them, yeah, we'll give you a little hourly increase or something. I'm just thinking, but they're doing it, and they're doing all this work. And Sherry has said that we are missing things. There are things not getting done now because they are doing other work. And I think that's really important to recognize that the staff downstairs are doing a job, and they're doing part of somebody else's job. I have to agree with Sherry when we talk about contracting out for services. Today I had to go downstairs and asked for, I have to change my bank. And the staff downstairs said, give me a second, I'm making a copy, and they handed me the form to fill out. if we contract out services, it's not going to be that quick. The answers that our staff can answer to our employees helps our employees understand what's going on. And contracting that out, I think, will take away all of that human touch that our employees have come to expect, and to save some money and then have chaos or whatever, like Sherry said, the amount of knowledge needed for the 4 unions and what needs to happen is unbelievable. And then I just also want to point out that it may just have been a semantics, but we are not adding an employee. We are filling a vacant position that we desperately need in accounting. Sherry wears 3 hats. Now we've given her an additional one. I think filling this position is the responsible thing to do, because our staff are already doing more than their fair share downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Motley.
So, Sherry, I appreciate what you do, and I know your workload has increased, number one. For me, if there is any way for this city to save money in an attempt to reduce anything that our taxpayers are paying, which I think is already too much, I am willing to look into it. And if outsourcing is the way, then I'm for green lighting it. Is it, Sherry, I'm going to put you on the spot, sorry. Do you think there is a chance, and I mean, it does sound like, for me, I do believe you need help. We need something over there. Is there a chance by outsourcing we can save money?
Yes.
So for me, that's it.
Reminder, we are obligated by statute and by contract to meet with the AFSCME union before we even discuss outsourcing. So I don't want to take this too much farther down the rabbit hole. But.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the motion here is to whether we're going to fill it now or not fill it at all, or hold it in abeyance later on, keep the position open. But the motion on the floor right now in support is to hire this Collingwood Clerk 1 position. Further discussion? Councillor Beyondich, and then we'll go back over to Councillor Paulson. Councillor Beyondich.
Thank you. And Sherry, you're in the hot seat. When I started on this council, we had 1 person in the finance office. Is that correct? One and a half?
1 in me.
1 in you. Mm-hmm. So where has the workload increased in the last several years that I've been here?
Oh, well, we can start with the fire hall. Sorry, Jay. But, they increased single roles. We never used to have that. So staffing has increased. We have increased all over. Iron Trail Motors, Event Center, Public Works, everywhere. So the staffing has increased. When you increase just even 1 employee, you increase workload down there.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Beyondich, Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to move to table this discussion until we can get, I guess I would move to table after we begin our budget discussions. That would be my motion. Move to table this position until after we begin our budget discussions to understand if we could outsource or what that might look like, or having discussions with the union, what that might look like. So my motion would be to table until those things happen.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and support to hire this position. We also have a tabling motion which supersedes the motion to hire. And the motion by Councillor Paulson to table and supported by Councillor Motley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call, please.
Paulson?
Aye.
Beyondich? Johnson?
No.
Baranzelli?
Yes.
Huffy?
Aye.
Motley?
Yes.
Friedlieb?
No.
Our motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Okay, next one.
Thank you. Item number 15 is review the letter of understanding with AFSCME for City Hall summer hours. I had sent an email previously mentioning to the council that we had discussed this at one time with the staff, that we were interested in looking at doing 10-hour shifts for the staff that are here during the summer hours, which would be from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So the building would still be open for the public, but staff will start at 7 a.m. rather than 8 a.m. and work a 10-hour shift.
And you've had some discussion and review with the bargaining with respect to this?
Yes.
Very good.
I do want to add I will add some language bring it to the council meeting that says it's by consensus of the department. So the staff that are in that department all have to agree that they are going to modify their hours. So
this is to review the letter of understanding, but it's not to move this forward?
To the council meeting.
Okay, so I read through the preliminary understanding, 10-hour shifts for the summer months. I'm fully supportive of it, as long as it's amenable to all parties involved. Looking for action, comments, questions by the council. Councilor Johnson.
I will move the LOU with the added language to the city council meeting on Tuesday.
Councilor Johnson moves to review and then move forward the letter of understanding with some changes recommended by our city staff, an agreement with ASME for the city summer hours, and move that to the council agenda for further action. Is there support? By Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a good idea for our staff, especially during the summer. The longer hours also allows for more time of uninterrupted work time. If they can come in early or stay later, those are the periods where I'm guessing these folks will get a lot more done. That being said, that does not negate my want for them to have that third person to be efficient at what they're doing. I appreciate ASME being willing to work with the city with us on this. And just as a note, when there is a holiday, the 10 hours will not be in play. It'll be an 8-hour day due to the holiday, but that'll all be discussed how that works. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Johnson. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in favor of this. I think if the staff is on board with it, I think it's a great idea. I do have one question regarding the overtime that I've been kind of watching overtime increments here down in the finance department. Will this eliminate the overtime that I am seeing coming through on our sheets, financial sheets?
Sherry?
Mayor?
Yes?
Some of that overtime is because we're in the middle of an audit. We're finishing up, so. And I'll tell you right now,
this would have been before the audit that I've been
then
seeing.
year-end stuff. And when you have two people, then.
And even prior to that, I was seeing overtime prior to Lori leaving.
Yeah, you have the 1099s, you have the W-2s, and we actually found some issues with the 1099s, which I ended up having to correct with the IRS.
So my question is, will this eliminate that overtime, the 10-hour shifts?
There should be no overtime with 10-hour shifts.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. It has been moved and supported to move this to the council with the agenda for final approval with the addendums being presented by our city staff. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a letter of understanding for the reassignment of 2 Iron Trail Motors Event Center employees to the park while we continue negotiations on the reorganization of Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay, we have a letter of understanding which we're reviewing, and this is a letter of understanding that has been discussed and conferred with the ASME local with respect to this. Thank you. Looking for council questions, comments, or action.
I will move the letter of understanding.
Councilor Johnson moves to move the letter of understanding to the council meeting with respect to the reassignment of Iron Trail Motors Event Center employees. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we have our Park and Rec Director come and maybe give us an overview of what this is going to mean and how this is going to impact, and then how the budget, maybe Sherry can discuss on, because we shifted all Iron Trail Motors Event Centers from park to the special revenue fund, so how this is going to impact the employee recreation budget, because I think we don't have, other than maybe your salary, we don't really have much coming out of there. I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked, but go ahead, Brian.
First, Brian, and then Sherry. Brian.
So essentially what this is going to do is shifting 2 of our full-time employees from the event center to the park and recreation budget for the summer. In the park and recreation budget, you have myself and 3 utility workers, the park staff. In addition, you have our summer student laborers and our skate shack attendants. This year, for obvious reasons, we didn't utilize very many hours of skate shack attendance, so that money was unused. And at this point, we are not filling the summer student labor positions and going to be using those funds to offset the cost of moving the staff down there for the summer. Keep in mind, normally we have 3 to 4 summer student laborers, and we are going to be moving 2 staff down there. So we will be short-staffed throughout the summer. Our biggest needs for the park are right now when everything is growing gangbusters. I did end up pulling event center staff yesterday to the park just to help catch up on some of the mowing needs that we have around town. And that is a benefit that we have of having staff that is available to us to pull.
That might lead me to one of my financial questions when we do this, and I'm in support of doing it, but we pay the summer laborers a lot less, dollar per hour wise. So we will be paying these utility workers the current wage that they are at to do work that our summer workers would work at least, I want to say, half. I don't know if that's completely correct, but 34 or whatever the wages are of these utility workers, 32. So how is that saving us money by moving the utility workers and not hiring the summer help at the lower wage?
Instead of hiring 4 summer help, we're moving 2 full-time.
And that would equate, would be the same?
About, yes.
About the same going forward. Okay. And then, so the reduction would be on the special revenue fund for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, and it would be moved into the general fund account of the Park and Rec Department?
No money would be moved. There would be a reduction in expense on the special revenue account for those wages that are appropriated at the time for the park. The park, you're going to save about $12,000 is what I budgeted for student summers. That's the number you should keep in mind.
$12,000.
Okay. About $12,000.
Yeah, it would just be helpful if we had that information, because when we're making votes, we're voting on things.
Go to page 94.
94.
You're going to see in the park or the recreation account, you'll see summer students, which doesn't say summer students, it says salaries part-time. $10,000 is in the budgeted line item for 2024, and then this payroll taxes, which roughly ends up being $12,000 that you will save.
Sherry, under the recreation budget, the $10,000 is for the skate shack attendants. If you go to the next page to the park department, the part-time salaries of $30,000, that is the summer student labor.
Okay.
Just to be clear for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to ascertain. So when we're making these decisions, it's helpful to have the financial information of what we're doing, either how much we're saving or how much more we're spending. So at the $27,566 mark, that's the 2023. We actually have 0 budgeted for 2024. So could we, on page 95 under Park Department, that's when I originally.
I have under salaries, Park Department, 103.
Under 30,000.
30,000.
Okay. So when we will be using that for the utility workers that will be coming over.
While we continue negotiations with ASME on the reorganization of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
While you are transferring those, their salaries would be allocated to the park. Mm-hmm. Reducing
the general
Iron
fund.
Trail, reducing the special revenue
reducing
fund
the special revenue fund for the ITMEC.
Roughly that. So all you're doing is shifting money, but the overall savings, like I mentioned before, is your summer student help, which was budgeted. Thank you, Brian, for correcting that. 30,000, and the payroll taxes. Your para, FICA, well, they wouldn't get para. FICA, Medicare, your payroll taxes.
Okay, so that's the number I was looking for was the difference, whatever it is.
That's roughly what you'd be saving.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Bring this to the council for final approval. The staff at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, outstanding work. They do outstanding work there. They've done outstanding work at the park. They have outstanding work up at the golf course and the restaurant area, thanks to Wes and the staff. And so this is just a change in duties and responsibilities moving forward, shifting it from one to the other. The same kind of good work they're doing at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center is the same good work they're going to be doing at the Park and Rec for the summer. I have no problem with this, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Paulson.
May I add right under this for a question for Brian?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Brian, question from Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Brian. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I have received 2 phone calls from people that live at the golf course, and I know Jim is here too. The fence is at 18th is falling apart, and we had told those residents that we would look into netting, and I know that there's issues still with the EPA that we've got going on with if we can even put posts in the ground or if we are getting price quotes. I'm not sure of that. But for the safety of the people there, could these fences be repaired between you guys and Public Works?
And before you answer, I had the same issues. I've got probably no more than 15 telephone calls with respect to this. And I know Brian's going to tell you the same thing he's told all of us, that we have a contractor, Iron Oak Fence, is going to come in and try to fix that. It's just a matter of time. So Brian, would you please address that for Councilor Paulson? Not just her, others have received his calls as well. So could you give her a little update?
Yep. We are waiting for Iron Oak Fencing to mobilize to make those repairs. What they will be doing is loosening the fence off of there so that they can straighten all the existing fence posts. Due to MPCA restrictions, we cannot put new fence posts in at this time. So they will be straightening the existing fence post, putting a new top rail on, and then re-stringing or retightening the existing fence that is there.
Excellent. So that is actually in the works of happening.
That is in the works and happening. We're waiting for them to mobilize.
Okay, and then the secondary part of that, are we in fact getting quotations for the kind of top golf fencing or netting that we were talking about, or is it premature until we close things out with the MPCA or EPA?
We are looking at options. However, to put a windscreen up there, it's going to be very difficult, and it will not be a successful windscreen unless we can put something into the ground to support the load of that windscreen when it has the wind going against it.
And I think maybe I need to show you what I'm referring to when we had these conversations last year. It's like if you look at any Top Golf place, it's not a windscreen. It's just a catch. It's a net that catches.
It's similar to the netting that we have over at the driving range.
Exact same. And the comments that I have received is that that has been repaired and is fine, and the driving can continue, but the residents have not had, they don't feel like they're getting any satisfaction with having the discussion we had about putting the netting up. But there are some regulations that we're still in the middle of dealing with. I just want to let people know we have not forgotten or where we are with maybe looking into that. And if a grant could be applied, I know we're very tight with funding, just maybe if something even with public safety because of what happened last summer, that person got hit with a golf ball. So I don't know if we need to make a motion on this or if we're currently working on this, but I have had several discussions with residents along that area that are concerned and their homes are now getting battered and dinged with golf balls veering off. And it's mainly because we took some of that tree barrier down. So I just want to make sure that we're working on that, and I'd like to be able to give especially the residents in that area an answer. So I don't know if you have any feedback on that or.
Well, we have a motion from last year to do that, to get the quotes, to determine what can be done to fix and to satisfy the residents moving forward. Over the years, there has been damage to people's garage door or their roof or a window. Somebody got hit by it. This has been going on since the inception of the golf course. And so we did take down some of the trees, and I want to say thank you to your staff, particularly your Mike, the greenskeeper and the public works staff. They cut that big tree down that they were concerned about leaning over. It was a buffer to keep the golf balls from coming through, but they were concerned about that coming down. They took all the time. They cut that entire tree down, ground it down the stump, and now it's clear enough to repair the fence. And I did disseminate that on a number of occasions as the concerns that you have as well, Councilor Paulson. So, and anything further, sir?
I just want to know an answer. That's all. So I'm looking for an answer of what the status is.
Okay. The status is we're repairing the fence from Iron Oak Fencing, and what else?
Repairing the fence from Iron Oak Fencing. We are evaluating what we can do, but we are limited in what we can do due to the restrictions that have been placed on us by the MPCA.
That answer your question to some degree?
I understand we have restrictions, but when those restrictions are lifted, what are we doing and how are we facilitating the directive that was given to obtain quotes or look into such protection for those residents in that area?
I think the goal here is to find a solution where the apex of the golf balls that are hit from the fairway, and most of the fairway, as you know, comes in the second shot on the fairway, which goes into the property of those people who are concerned. And that the apex of those golf balls is really high. It's over 30 feet or more. So we got to find a way, and if you're going to prevent that from happening, we're going to look at some kind of an option that's going to help dissipate that. So by putting a 20-foot high barrier up or whatever, it may not be enough to prevent that apex of the ball going off the second shot, because that's what normally happens.
And by putting something that is 30 feet high in the air, we're going to have to put the fence post down into the ground. That's where we are limited right now with our MPCA, is that we cannot break the ground to put anything into the ground that would get up high enough to put this fence there. So once these restrictions from the MPCA are lifted for us, then we can move forward with adding something similar that we have at the driving range there. But until those MPCA restrictions are lifted, our hands are kind of tied at this point.
And some of these other places that have the same concerns of the golf courses throughout the area, and I've had an opportunity to speak to some of the golf course managers throughout the area as they make the circuit. When they put these big fences up or these big netting up, and they have done for other residents, they use telephone poles and they post the telephone poles way in the ground, they dig them way down deep, and they attach that screen up to the telephone post, which goes significantly higher to help accommodate the slicing or the hooking of the ball based upon, whatever the case may be. So that's going to be an option I know that you're looking at, Brian. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. If you look at Top Golf or Sweet Shots, like I have girls that work at Sweet Shots in Fargo, they're like almost probably 100 feet in the air for driving. It can be done. There's plenty of facilities. It's probably just really expensive, and that's why I'm looking. It's not something low that I'm thinking. I'm thinking something very high for
Correct.
Safety.
But those poles that are 100 feet in the air, how far underground are they?
Well, we can't. I understand
That's
totally
where we're
understand
limited.
that. And what I'm trying to say is, when those restrictions are lifted, what is our plan?
I have reached out. Last year when we had this motion, I have been talking to a company that does those screens for driving ranges, and we looked at an 80 foot by 120 foot, and she said it would be cheaper to go to 80 foot tall with smaller sections. Mm-hmm. And the cheapest way to put a pole in is actually flag poles because they're cheaper for some reason.
That's smart.
However, the flagpole requires a base, and we can't get that in right now. But that's our plan. Is that she had given me the quote. She's working on a quote last year, and I need to talk to her again this spring about the 80-foot tall sections.
Perfect.
How many we're going to need, and then the flag poles, like she mentioned, were cheaper than trying to find any other manufactured pole.
Okay, and then would there be some way that maybe you and Brian can coordinate if there's some type of a grant we could apply for?
And that was going to be our plan. She had warned me it's going to be at least $25,000 for just the netting alone, and then we'd have to find the cost of the flagpoles, do the flagpoles ourselves, and they would ship us the netting. Definitely, we could work out something to try to find some funding.
Okay, I would greatly appreciate that, and I know the residents would greatly appreciate that. And I would also just offer that if we do have some injury and there is an injurious claim, that will bring our insurance liability up, just like when tree limbs fall down on cars. So I feel like it is, yes, it's expensive, but if something happens, not only to a property, to a car, but heaven forbid a person, not only would that be tragic, but it would also increase our insurance liability rates. So I think it is very prudent for us to look into this down the line with grant and whatever as soon as we get cleared up with the MPCA. Thank you, Mayor.
And just so the public understands, this is not going to happen now or this year because of these restrictions that we are under.
But what we can do is have it ready to go, and in preparation for that, it's not just putting up the fence and putting this up. The additional expenses, in order to do that, based upon the photograph that Councilor Paulson has disseminated a little bit throughout, we have to cut all those trees down. Those trees, that fence is not going to accommodate the trees. The branches are hanging over this way, hanging over that way, and all those trees along the 11th Avenue there, or 10th Avenue, 11th Avenue, along the fence line where that fence is, those trees will have to come down, as the other two were taken down earlier by your staff. So have everything ready to go, get a quote for us, and then we'll work with the MPCA to find what the time frame is for us to move that forward. So, and so thank you for that, Councilor Paulson. Hopefully you'll be able to disseminate that to those residents and alleviate, at least so we have a plan moving forward. So thank you.
Also keep in mind, the more of those trees that we take down right now, the more of that natural barrier that we are removing without the ability to put up an artificial barrier.
Yeah, I think
so my plan is to keep as many of those trees there until we get to the point of being able to put up the netting.
Certainly. Yeah, thank you for that, Brian. Okay. Okay, anything else on that, Councilor Paulson?
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to do that.
You're very welcome. Okay, let's see. Okay, next item, number 17, please. Oh, do we have to vote? No, there's no motion. Okay, 17, please.
Thank you. Item number 17 is the accept resignation of our current designated building official, Christina Nicola, and appoint a designated building official. I included in the packet some information from the state regarding that the city is required to designate a building official. We have Bill Cole still on our staff, who does currently hold a building official license. He's been working with us through phased retirement. He has agreed to fill in the interim until we can figure out a plan of what we're going to do going forward. But however, we have 15 days from the date of Christina's last day, which is May 29th, to assign somebody. So we need to assign somebody in the interim until we figure out our plan going forward.
So there's two parts to this. First is to accept the resignation from Christine Nicola and appoint a designated building official.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Looking for council action.
I'll move the acceptance of the resignation.
Councilor Freely moves to accept the resignation of Christine Nicola. Can we use this in one motion and appoint a designated building official? Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Further discussion. I'm going to be a no on this because I don't want her to resign. Just kidding. Okay, thank you. All right, Councilor Johnson.
I'm very proud of Christina and all she's done and the work she continues to do. I feel like this is another one of those unintended consequences of what happened over the last several months with the budgeting and all that stuff. So I too am not happy about her leaving, but I am proud that she is able to go and create her impact, and her professionalism will now be a statewide impact as opposed to just citywide. So I will reluctantly be voting to accept her resignation and to appoint a temporary person.
Okay, so just to clarify the motion and the support is to accept the resignation of Christine Nicola and appoint a designated building official, and your recommendation is Bill Cole in the interim?
In the interim, yes.
Okay, thank you. Would that be part of the motion and support? Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Page 2.
Second page. Item number 18 is the purchase of the 2024 Ford Transit van from Lundgren's. This is referred from the last council meeting.
I will move to purchase the van.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the purchase of the van. Is there support?
All support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for further discussion. Further discussion? Councilor Freely.
So I see Wes is here, and I appreciate you for coming here, and I also want to mention I appreciate very much for you stepping up to the position that you're in and the pride that you brought to that position. You're doing a great job from everything I've heard, and I appreciate that. But of course, you know, the situation that we're in with regard to spending money in the city, and so I guess I'm of the mind that we have to look at what other options may be available that might not cost us $64,000. And I don't know if you're prepared today to convince us that that's what we need to do, or if you can talk to what other options may be available that would be potentially not as costly to the city, but might accommodate your needs for the job that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, could you turn the light on to green and just state your name for the general public, Wes, and we'll ask for some answers.
Hi, my name is Wes Lavalley, maintenance at the ITMEC.
Wes?
So I'm here to advocate for the van. I wasn't the original advocator, but being in the position that I have been, I could express how important it would be to have a vehicle of some sort to be able to maximize my ability to do the job to the best potential that I can. Basically, meaning there's a lot of driving around running for tools, ladders, that type of stuff that we're tripping over dollars to save dimes, I guess is a good way to express that right now. Now, I don't know that in the current budget you guys have to deal with, if now is the time to spend that money. I wish it were, but I understand your guys' budget. I think there's alternate ways we can do things. Maybe we could do something different with the current vehicles we have there. Ultimately, it would be great to have the van. So if you guys can make that happen, that would be great. But until that happens, you're losing some money on me, what the running around I have to do, being that I have the other buildings that I've got to take care of other than just the ITMEC.
So quick question, like in my, I don't know because I'm not doing the job, but like, so we do have existing vehicles. Like
we do.
Pickup. Would an option be like a workman's topper?
Like a NAPI box?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a good option, especially if moving forward, if you guys decided that maybe a van in the future is not the proper thing and that maybe a truck is, because then you could take that NAPI box and insert it into a new truck if that's the direction you guys wanted to go.
Could we put it on an existing vehicle, or?
We have an extended cab, a 2000 GMC that you could put that on now. That would be sufficient.
It would be sufficient for the time being.
Yeah. Ultimately, you know, what Kurt has is ideal.
Right.
And I know we're not in an ideal budget situation right now, so I understand that. But if you want me to do my job to the best of my ability, a vehicle of some sort with tools on board is necessary.
Does you leave the ITMEC frequently or not necessarily?
Yeah, especially recently now with the restaurant coming on board and the golf course coming on board now. If I'm going to guess, I'm 60% at the ITMEC and 40% out as of right now. But I'm taking on more duties because Kurt's got a big workload, and I'm trying to take some off of his plate as well.
So you're often, so like you guys carpooling to a site is not necessarily the.
If I find myself in a position where I have to do a job where I know that Kurt probably has the tools, I'll just give him a call and see if he's not too busy. But Kurt's busy. And sometimes that's hard to do, so I'm running around either borrowing tools from him and borrowing tools from the ITMEC. And
I'm just looking like if we could accommodate an existing vehicle with a topper of sorts that would be able to be utilized, but not take away the utility of that vehicle for whatever purposes it's being used, and we could save potentially $50,000.
You could. I don't know exactly what an Appy box would cost, and then to outfit the truck a little better than what it is, but you definitely could save. I don't know if it's exactly the $10,000 or less or more, right. But yeah, it's definitely an option. But idealistically, I mean, the van would be great, but I understand your guys' budget doesn't really allow to do so. So
okay. Well, I don't know that it doesn't allow to do so. I know we budgeted for that, or is this a bonded item that we talked about? But there are other ways that we could utilize that money to assist the debt in the city, so to speak.
There's other ways to do everything in life. I mean, there's alternate. If you're a problem solver, you figure things out. I mean, we can get by by doing alternate ways of doing it, but idealistically, the van would be great.
Yeah, and I'd like to get you that, or at least something that would be accommodating to the needs that you have, you know, that weren't as expensive as that van. So I don't know if we can make a motion to seek at least like a cost estimate or a quote on that other type of topper that could be put on an existing vehicle that might accommodate your needs for the time being. At least we'd be able to compare costs. I don't know, that's what I'd be thinking.
Sure. I'm here to do the job you guys are asking me to do with the tools that you give me. I can do a better job with better tools. That's basically the bottom line. Right.
Okay, thank you, Wes. Hang on one moment. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you for coming and
no problem.
Letting us know. And I do think that we can get creative and maybe accommodate what you need and then try to save the taxpayers some money. So I think what I'd like to go into right now is the request that I'd made to Pam to give us all quotations on, because if you look on page 55, under Park and Recreation, we've got a pickup with V-Plow for park designation, allocated $64,000. Then we have a pickup with plow and box for maintenance. So we did have a box included. Then we were told that there was an insurance claim, which I had asked to see paperwork on an insurance claim that apparently it was just a fender bender and there was nothing wrong, or it was just a fender or the back end bumper or something like that. So realistically, we did not need to budget for a van, although the email train goes from August of 23, talking about this van that we were getting quotes for, but the van was not included in our capital equipment outlay. So I'm concerned about how that got transpired from a V-Plow with a pickup for park or a plow and box for maintenance, and there's funds that are allocated. So I did ask for that. I received only quotations. We received only quotations in our packet for the van and not the pickup with plow and box. So I also have a photo of a quotation from Washke's for a 2024 GMC 1-ton regular cab with pro package with snowplow prep, MSRP 55,105, your price 51,000 plus any applicable tax and fees. And I'm wondering why that was not given to us for consideration. So I've got several things. Oh, do you have to add something, Pam?
She's getting ready to respond to your
question. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just head down and going through. Okay. So my concern, though, is the way in which we did the quotations on each of these vehicles, how many we obtained, and what the difference was with the plow, with the truck box for maintenance, and then a truck with a plow for park.
Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Paulson, to answer your question, so Britt and I went over the packet on Friday or Thursday and reviewed the truck from the Washkes. So that was a state bid. It did not list that on the quote. So that, and there was a request to get another quote, but since that was state bid pricing, we only needed one. Okay. So that was not, until that was revised, that was not in the packet. The other issue with the accident was not the correct vehicle. It was a different workers' comp claim, so that is not public. That would be put in the packet. On the previous vehicle that Britt had talked about at the other meeting, that you were referring 22 it was.
It was an accident. There's a copy of the minutes in your packet where Jim Ross stood up and said because the plow truck, the plow fell off the truck while the person was driving. We had to use a contingency fund in 22 to pay for the vehicle for the recreation department. Because we didn't have the bond yet.
But we would have paid for that in 22, so why were we just told that that the van was substituting for the plow and the box if that happened in 2022 and we're now in 2024? I'm not understanding.
Couldn't count 22's purchase towards the 23 equipment bond.
So we purchased something in 22, but I thought that was an insurance claim.
Because the plow fell off. And Brian doesn't need every vehicle with a plow. He had gotten a truck with a plow in 22. So then in 23, his needs changed a little bit. He didn't need another one. What he really needed was a maintenance vehicle. So that.
But it says pick up with plow and box maintenance on page 55.
We had been planning for that since 2019.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that we have changed from the pickup with box and plow to the van is because it saves the city and the taxpayers close to $6,000. We had budgeted $70,000. We're asking to expend $64,000.
Right, but the plow with a truck with a box and the plow from Washkes was $51,000, so that would save even more taxpayer dollars.
That's the other vehicle on there, and the reason that has not come to council is because I have one quote. I'm having problems getting other quotes.
Okay, and that was my question regarding quotations. So I don't think it's necessary that we get a van. I just don't think that that's a good use of taxpayer dollars, like I've said the last 3 meetings. I think it's important that we do the quotation process the right way, and I'm not saying it or inferring that it hasn't been done the right way. It's just been very confusing as to how the explanations that have been given to us going forward with what is actually on our capital equipment list and versus what we are approving or approving to purchase. Now, I made a call to George Eilertson from Northland Securities, who then in turn called Mia Thibodeau, or actually it was her assistant, our bond counsel, and was told that any of our remaining funds in our 2023 capital equipment bond that have not been expended or unexpended funds, that we can actually pay our bond down and actually do a negative bond, a debt levy for 2025. We do not have to spread that over the course of 5 years or the course of the bond itself. We could take a one-time shot in the arm for the year 2025 with no penalty. We would not be paying interest. So my question is, why is staff not looking at cost-saving measures for our taxpayers based upon what we are now talking about with reorganization and restructuring? And the public utilities has additional vehicles in their fleet. Why are we not talking to the public utility company to see if we could share those vehicles or buy used vehicles? I'm just not really sure why we are not having these conversations to save the taxpayers dollars, and the fact that we could in fact have a negative debt levy service in 2025. I was told that by George Eilertson, and who would talk to our bond counsel.
Mayor?
So did I get inaccurate information?
It depends on what you gave him and what you asked him and what he gave
I
you.
specifically said anything that we haven't purchased equipment-wise on this sheet.
Okay.
He said if it's equipment, that is correct.
That is, but the bond payment for 2024 for the 23 equipment bond is $437,000. You can subtract $64,000 from that, but you still owe a pretty good chunk.
I'm looking at the balance now. This is the balance remaining funds of $418,000, but that was as of January 23rd, December of 2023. So I don't know what else we have expended, which is, I think this is part of the list, Sherry, that you said you guys were behind in updating the things that we have purchased. Was that this list that you were referring to?
Yeah, this is just one particular bond. It's called the 2023.
And this is the specific bond that I called them on.
Right. And we have an annual payment that equates to.
We also have a remaining fund balance of, according to this sheet, of $418,000, of which if we did not expend those funds, we could reduce the debt levy by any of the, whatever the amount is that we have not spent. And we could do it in the year 2025, one shot in the arm, or we could do it over the course of 5 years or the life of the bond in reduction of the payment and pay that bond right now.
So you're looking at this page.
Correct.
Which is probably font size 6 on mine. So I will have to enlarge this to see, and then we have to know some of these items may have already been ordered.
Correct. I looked specifically
so we
at the
may not
garbage
have
truck
400,
for
so we
$300,000.
have to.
One person at a time here.
I looked specifically at the garbage truck and the $200,000 or the $300,000 allocation, I think, for Public Works or a dump truck. I think most of these that are in, I think Lori highlighted the ones in orange is what I was interpreting that have been ordered or maybe have not received. Were in, I don't know if we've received the garbage truck or not. We have not received the garbage truck. Have we made payments on the garbage truck? So in having this discussion, we could actually reduce our debt levy to our taxpayers by a very significant amount if we privatized our garbage and therefore did not take the garbage truck. Or it says we have $418,000 in remaining funds of that 2023 capital equipment bond. According to Northland Securities and to our bond counsel, if we do not purchase these pieces of equipment going forward, that fund balance, the remaining funds can be used to reduce our debt levy at the end of 2024, which would have a negative debt levy in the year 2025 if we so chose to do a one-time shot in the arm 1 year. And so my discussion is an overall broader discussion as to why are we purchasing brand new vehicles and expending such large sums of money when we all know the situation that we are currently in with our budget, even though when we approved this capital equipment bond was probably the end of 2022, maybe didn't quite understand the impact we were going to have fiscally now in 2024. So to partially correct this, I'm wondering why aren't we being asked to look at anything that would be cost-saving measures, including purchasing used vehicles and not new vehicles? And if new vehicles are required by a capital equipment bond, I am not sure if it requires a new vehicle purchase. But just like Mr. LaValle was saying, if we could purchase a box, they could retrofit that on an existing truck. I'm just wondering why staff is not bringing these cost-saving measures to our attention, and it takes taxpayers giving suggestions, and then when they do give suggestions, there's pushback on those suggestions. So moving forward, I would like us to take a complete look at this list and say, what do we really need these if we're looking at possibly privatizing garbage or changing our services? What do we really need? And why haven't we gone through that exercise? I'm not sure. But any of the remaining funds that we have in this bond, it would be my recommendation to not spend them and pay the bond down by that amount. Also, on top of that, has anyone called the Department of Public Utilities, since they are reducing their staff and have already reduced their staff regarding their fleet? Have we reached out to them at all to see if we could share vehicles? I know we have done that in the past, so there isn't a specific cash outlay on those. Has anyone done that?
Jim, I know that we share. Would you come up and answer that question for Councilor Paulson? I know we're on this. Motion on the floor is for the purchase and not the purchase of this van, and so we're digging into the weeds, which is appropriate to do so. So the question that she's asking is, do we share our services with Department of Public Utilities?
Yes, we do. Anything that they have that they're bringing up on disposal, we do take a good look at it and see if it's something that will work for us or not. We're dealing right now, especially even on a bucket truck, something that will come down the pipe. Not right now, but it's going to. So we do that. Usually their stuff is pretty well beyond, or they'll trade it in to trade up for their stuff too.
Okay, so has there been any conversations with their existing fleet that's currently parked in their yard that they're not using regarding any of those vehicles?
As of right now, there's nothing they're not using. They will give us a list. I know I've asked them for lists now. They're going to give us a list for disposal items, and then we actually do the auctioning off for them.
Okay.
So if something does come to us that catches our eye that would work for us, we'll address it. But like I say, I know everything's so tight on money that.
Right. Well, and the other thing I would ask is that when we go forward, do you look this is just you asking you, but as department heads, do you look at purchasing used vehicles in order to save some money on that end in that respect?
We do if the availability is there. A lot of our stuff is specialty equipment where you've got to order it.
Sure. With Public Works, I can totally understand.
Yeah. So, and to find things used, it's a lot of reason the auctions and the people or the companies getting rid of it, the businesses, they're getting rid of them for a reason, because there's been an issue with that item or a problem with that.
Sure. No, and I understand that for Public Works, but like for a van like what we're discussing, I'm sure we could find other ways to provide that. But thank you, Mayor. I did not mean to segue. It's a larger conversation with how we're planning going forward with any of our capital equipment purchases. And I appreciate you letting me take the time to have that discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Before we go to Councilor Johnson, I'll wait. I'll hold my comments in advance till the end. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a point that I feel for our staff, because depending on what we're talking about, either they should be doing something without council direction, or they did something and they should have had council direction. And I know I've had that conversation with a couple of, especially department heads. Oh, I know for me that the department heads are doing everything they can to keep their budgets in check, knowing that there's another budget cycle starting in literally weeks. I appreciate your candor, Wes, with that we could do something temporarily for this. Britt, the question would be is, can we look at not a van, but this box option as part of the bond, or would that money have to come from general funds?
That's a great question. I think we could, as long as it's still vehicle.
So I would be willing to look at something with the help. I mean, really, Wes and Kurt should be the ones kind of literally driving this van so that we know what they need. And if there's something out there that they think would fulfill our needs and cut the budget, I would be more than willing to support them in moving forward with that. And with that, I guess I will make a tabling motion since we obviously need to have some more discussion about this. So I'll move to table until the next committee of the whole meeting for the appropriate equipment.
It's a motion to table. What I'd like to do is can I make a comment before there's a second on the tabling motion? Because the comment I want to make, and I don't have a problem tabling it, but for me, first of all, this is an investment in our staff's ability to do their work. They need the proper equipment to do their work. With all due respect, used vehicles is not the answer. We need a long-term approach. We need a proper type vehicle for the needs of that particular employee in that group, and this van is appropriate. Now, I would never vote for any used product, particularly when it comes to this. If you're looking at a grader that's 3 years old and nobody needs it anymore, and it's got it's usable because they have too many of them, okay, I get that. But when it comes to these kind of things, like you said, Jim, these vans, when you look on the auction block and looking for those kind of things, it's crazy. So I think we have to have something new. Maybe if it's van, I don't have a problem voting for the van, but we need something new, something that's going to accommodate the services where all these tools can come in, and you look every single private entity, even public entities, you have to have, I'm a little fragmented because I'm frustrated, really, because I think that we have to invest in the equipment that we have. We have an equipment bond. It's listed on the equipment bond. Yes, we can make some adjustments at the equipment bond. If we don't buy one, it doesn't necessarily mean we don't buy any of them. So having that longer conversation about that is fine, but I think we need to purchase something new to accommodate the needs that Wes and that staff has over there. So there's a motion to table. Is there support? Is there support? Support by Councillor Beyondich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Beyondich? Johnson?
Yes.
Baranzelli? Yes. Cuffey?
No.
Motley?
Yes.
Friedlieb? Paulson?
Yes.
Motion passes to table 5-2. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I segue before we move down to something?
Not on this matter.
Correct.
Okay, sure. What would you like?
Just Councillor Paulson talking about the garbage truck. We can't talk about that.
Well, I think that we'll talk about that garbage services during our budget process as we move forward. If there's going to be any change, it requires a meeting and confer with the bargaining unit with that respect. So I think that comes for future consideration.
We can't talk about the purchase of a garbage truck?
We can talk about the purchase of the garbage truck that's in that we've currently already ordered, yes.
So we're okay with that then?
Sure, go ahead.
Can we take that back?
I don't know.
We'll have to do some research because we did sign a contract when we ordered it, so we'll take a look at it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Motley. Okay. Next item, please.
Thank you. Item number 19 is review the standby billing for the Virginia Fire Department, and we have Deputy Chief Eric Jonason here.
Deputy Chief Jonason, are we changing our billing company?
No, this is just for when we send an EMT or paramedic to do EMS standby for a special event or a hockey game. In the past, Generally, we haven't billed for those services as a public service to whatever nonprofit or youth organization. And with the direction that we were given last year, we put together this EMS standby billing to essentially charge for our services.
So if there's an event going on, for example, at the Iron Trail Memorial Event Center, and you're put on standby in case something happens, you're asking to bill for that standby status, is that correct?
Correct. I believe that was the directive last year given to us.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies things, okay. Any questions from the council? Councilor Johnson?
Is there a page with, I'm lost on the long agenda on what page the actual stuff is on.
Okay. Yeah, so all you're asking for is any additional events that you're asked to be on standby. So my question would be, as Councilor Johnson is looking at that as on standby. So say there's an event at the Ontario Memorial Event Center, but you're not asking to be put on standby, and an emergency comes. You bill anyway, right?
We then bill, yeah. If we're not dedicating staff to that particular event, this doesn't apply.
Okay,
if they call 911 because somebody fell down and injured themselves, then it's current standard billing practices.
So it would be only at the request of that individual venue to have your people stand by?
Correct. This is just for them to stand by. And if at that event where we do have one or two, whatever the requirement for that event is, standing by, and an ambulance is needed, then a run report will be generated, and it will go to our billing company as usual.
So for the sake of discussion, so we have an agreement with the Rockridge School District. I don't know if a part of that is we provide emergency services in the event something happens, or would that be standby?
But that's kind of the same kind of thing. Or if it's a private event.
But they'll be billed for that.
Like the Wounded Warriors hockey game, if they think they want EMS there, they're going to need to pay for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Britt. Thank you.
Currently for Rockridge, they're contracted with Orthopedic Associates. If they're unable to fulfill their obligation, they call us. If we do fill it, then they reimburse us back for our time for that event, since they were the initial contracted for it.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. Do we currently have a policy for this, a written policy?
Not currently.
Okay. I guess I'd like to see a policy, and I appreciate you're looking to generate revenue. As you know, what I'm seeing here is it's on this form, it's $54 per person, and then do we have an hourly charge that you have set or want to set, or
that $54 per person per hour is the hourly. So that's the mean of our overtime wages, plus the 17.7 for para, plus 1.45 for Medicare. And that's how I came to that $54.
Okay.
I should clarify policy on what we do staff or what we don't.
On how
we staff it.
If there's exceptions, if there's already built into a contract, like I'd just like to see that in writing so that someone can't come to us later and go, well, you didn't charge hockey, but you charged skating or something like that. I just would like to make sure that it's the same picture for everybody. I appreciate this as an effort to create equity among what we're doing. So I will move to direct you and the staff to create a I don't know if policy is the right word, but some written guidance as to how this will be used and when it will be used to bring forward later.
Process. Like a process or procedure, Councilor Johnson? Okay, thank you. Is there support for that?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Further discussion of, you had something, Sherry?
Yes, I do. I just want to clarify that. It isn't necessarily a revenue generating opportunity here. It is to cover our costs. When it's similar to when police are required to be at an event, we do charge, the city does, for the police officer to be there. And it's usually written in a contract in the event. And I assume you have SOPs too.
We do have internal policies on how we fill these special events with off-duty staff. And yeah, this isn't revenue generating. This is a mean. So if one of our battalion chiefs picks up that overtime, we're probably going to lose a little bit of money. But on the next event, if one of our 2-year members picks up that overtime, their wages is not the same as a 20-year battalion chief. So it's right in the middle of what we pay for overtime.
So it's revenue recovery.
Yeah.
Or cost recovery, excuse me.
Yep, we're looking to just break even.
Councilor Motley, do you have something? No, okay. All right, it has been moved and supported to develop a process or a procedure as to how that you're going to be applying that standby stipend. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 20, review the financial reports as of April 2024.
Okay, very good. Anybody have anything with respect to the financial reports from April of 2024? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think we all received an email from Britt regarding Mondays to review.
Yes.
And I really, really appreciate that.
No problem.
I will try to make as many as I can. So going through, if I'm on page 69, I just want to quickly, just the things that I've looked at. Page 69, account ending, data processing account ending in 381. We have not done any expenditure in the year 2024 when we budgeted $36,000 for internet service. And last year, 2023, we spent $357.59. I'm wondering if that got allocated to something else or what that internet account 381 represents.
Sherry?
That is something that I will have to check into. Off the top of my head, I would not know. Britt, would you have an idea?
Okay, we'll take a look at that, Councilor Paulson, and send you the answer.
Thank you, because that would be, then my recommendation would be to cut that out of the budget discussion for 25. And then if I look on page 75 under the ambulance, and I see, but on page 75, I didn't go and highlight a specific account, but when I look at our 2024 current year actual, so it looks like for the month of April, as of April 24th, we were negative $67,167.88 in our ambulance special revenue fund. And our year-to-date, the current month actual, current year, excuse me. I'm so sorry, Sherry. That was our current year actual. And then we have a net grand total that we're negative $147,306. I'm just wondering if we could go over that and if I'm reading that wrong.
I apologize because I thought I had the front page of this. I just have the bottom line, which I guess is fine, but I don't have what's listed as revenue and when it's coming in. I just have this, and I double-sided. So
on page 74 is this ambulance special revenue fund. Those would be the revenue accounts on the. Is that the top line?
Yes, it would. They'd start with 273, 4. Those are revenue accounts.
So is that the revenue account then? Are those the only 1, 2, 3,
4 revenue accounts?
4 revenue accounts.
Correct.
So, and then the rest underneath that are the expenditure accounts.
Expenditure accounts start with the number 4.
Okay, so 270 dot, and then they begin with 4.
Okay,
so it looks like the differentiation then between revenue and expenditure. So I've got current month actual. So we had an revenue fund. So our revenues were 290, our expenditures were 268. So we have a positive 21,000. But if you go to the underneath there, it's showing a negative 147,306. Is that what we have left in our budget to spend to spend?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But then if you go to the current year actual, in April it shows, or as of April, we are negative $67,000 in our ambulance special revenue fund.
However, when I sent this email out, before I sent it to Pam too, I did note that we did not have all of our journal entries done as of May 16th. So there may be direct deposit funds we've received that have not been put in yet to the revenue. So until that's completed, I don't want to get too excited about it because it may not be as big as 67,000. It may be a little less than that.
So I think that's what, do we need to watch that account, is that special revenue account, because it is going now to the negative, and we had been doing so well.
Correct.
With that.
And this time of year is tax season year, so those that we have revenue recapture on, the state does take their tax returns if they have an outstanding bill with us for so long. So this is the time of year we usually would see that little influx of things come back in. The accounts receivable would go down and the cash would come up a little bit.
Okay, thank you for that, Britt and Sherry. And then the last conversation, I think, I haven't gone through this totally, but I'll spare you all. Page 79. Special event expense. This would probably have been for like hairball, account ending 438. So I appreciate we did receive that, basically a P&L for the hairball event. I think that was awesome that we were able to receive that. And I can find up above with the revenue and then the expense. My question is, on the last run of bills, there was something that we paid from February, and I think it was attributed, or maybe it was March, and it was attributed to hairball, maybe a pre-booking or something. It was like $6,900, or maybe it was not quite that much. I don't know. I have to go back and look. But are we then allocating that into the correct, I guess, is there an entry in that to reflect, because if some of the invoices are being paid out at different months or prepaid, are we allocating that to know our true cost associated with the event when all is said and done?
Yes. And that's why it took us a little while to get to that P&L. So we had to go back and find all the invoices and make sure we had them all. Like I think Brian mentioned too, there was a couple that we were still waiting for them to come in, and they finally came in. So it just, you're right. I think it was $6,500, and that was a prepayment, down payment for the band.
Okay.
And if I can.
Sherry?
Thank you. If you look on 79, the last three numbers, those are called object codes. 438, it says special event expense. And you'll see so far, year to date, we have $42,741 in there. That's where that probably 69 went. So then Brian can pull that up.
So then you extract that information in order to provide the P&L from such event,
yes,
whatever
and
it is.
Keep in mind that line is not just hairball. We've had two special events that have gone into that line this year. Our winter event, which was the dinner and concert in the ballroom around in February, and now hairball. We also, still coming up this year, have Family Fun Day, which is in July, and then we have another fall event. So there are 4 events that go into this one line item, which is why we have been keeping a separate Excel spreadsheet for each of these events so that we are able to provide you a profit loss statement, because as great as Cassell is, it doesn't provide that individual profit loss statement unless we create a whole lot more lines, which would make accounting a whole lot more confusing moving forward.
So thank you for that, and I appreciate getting that information. That was really helpful to me, so thank you again. And I think that's all I really had on our budget worksheets that are included in the packet today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. Councillor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I'm sorry the meeting is taking so long to go over all this. And
it is what it is, as our counselor would say.
From day one when I got on, I kept asking for a finance committee.
Certainly.
And it is to alleviate some of this. I went in yesterday and was able to sit and go through a lot of these finances and have things explained to me. So I will still push that we create a finance committee to alleviate all of this. For those who are interested, I would be one that would be greatly interested in being part of that finance committee to look through this and not belabor it here. So that is my comment. I will continue. Could I make a motion to that effect to create a finance committee?
You sure may. We have one.
So the first of the year is when we do that reorganization again, and that would be a great time to talk about that. So that's when we usually talk about it, when the committees are set. And by last time we had the election, we set the entire council is the finance committee.
So it would have to be done after the first of the year?
Yes, and for now we'll do the meetings on Mondays with staff, like we mentioned, to go over some of the stuff.
In January, I could make a motion to create
100%. It's a reorganization meeting. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. So at the reorganization meeting after the election, when the committees are set, you could part out the committee of the whole, finance committee of the whole, and change it so not all councilors are part of the committee of the whole. Only just who's ever appointed to the finance committee, and that particular the finance committee will discuss these and then come back to the committee of the whole meeting and discuss it with the other councilors who are not on the finance committee. So it's just a change of the format. Very good. Thank you. Okay, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Beyondich, for bringing that up. I'm just wondering if, like, you're doing these meetings kind of loosely then on Mondays. I don't necessarily think that it should be restructured because of the purpose of a finance committee of the whole is because you need 5 to 2 to spend money or to move things forward.
That's right.
But what about if you're just reviewing, because I know this gets tiring for people that don't want to be engaged in this, in looking through the financial worksheets. What if you created a committee to look through the finance worksheets and to, Makita, drill down on that, and you're not making any decisions. You're just meeting to ask the questions and maybe not lengthen our committee of the whole. And that way, when you have when the finance piece is on our committee of the whole, you could just say, hey, the reports were gone through and here's some of the questions that were asked. So I don't necessarily know that it's a quote unquote finance committee or if it's just a budget worksheet committee. Maybe that could be done to assist in the process of, even just catching $36,000 on internet services when we need netting for the golf course to the tune of about $25,000. It's just, if that's not really being allocated somewhere, it's important that people do go through these budget worksheets to catch these things and to try to assist in any way that we can assist going forward. So I don't know if it would be, maybe the Monday kind of setup that you have will be similar to what I'm talking about.
It still would have to be posted because in the event that more than 3 councilors attend, you still have to post it as a meeting.
Yeah, or I think anyone can attend, I think is what.
At any time, any council member can come in and we can sit down and talk about this too. If you can't make Monday, certainly give us a call and we'll get you in to talk about some of this stuff.
I just can see the benefit in doing an exercise monthly like this and just fleshing out any of the questions that we have that maybe then could be disseminated at the actual committee of the whole together so that it does not take up so much time at the end of our meetings when we receive the financial budget worksheets. So that would be my input, is that I would be comfortable, but if Monday is the day and I can try to make those as much as I can, that would be awesome for me to understand finances going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, the invite is for all councilors, if you have a question, certainly contact Sherry Britt at any time. I do that quite frequently on a regular basis before the meeting, so I kind of understand what's going on in that regard. So to have an informal event on Monday afternoon may be helpful. It bridge the gap until we come to the reorganizational meeting in 2025. Any other items or concerns or comments on the April financial worksheet? Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Brian.
Hey, I would just like to take an opportunity to look at two of our special revenue funds. If you would turn to page 77, that would be talking about the golf course. Would just like for the public to know and for council to be aware that year to date, the golf course is operating at a $6,614 profit for the year. Then if you would turn your attention to page 113, that would be the Tennis for All budget. That budget also is operating at a $6,655 profit. In my 5.5 years here with the city, that is the first time that I've ever been able to say both of those budgets are in the black. So thank you to the staff and boards at both of those facilities. The city is definitely going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Anything else to come before the council with respect to item 20 on the list, the review of the financial reports of April of 2024? Seeing none, next item, please.
Next item is a step 3 grievance from AFSCME, and this portion of the meeting will be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05, subdivision 2, 3, and 2, 4.
Okay, can I just bring up something real quick before we go into closed session on our items concerned? The legislature adjourned Sunday at midnight. No bonding bill, no $1.7 million for the city. No bonding bill. Number 2, only $24 million was allocated to the EMS. It was a $120 million bill sponsored on both sides of the House and the Senate, for allocation of that. Had that been done, we could potentially have had a revenue recapture of $550,000 based on the formula that was devised by the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. That's not going to happen. Only $24 million were allocated, and not just for Northeast Minnesota. It's for the entire state. The governor had $16 million in his bill. They could only muster up $24 million. So that's not going to be significant help for us at all. It's a Band-Aid approach. The big deal is to create another government entity to oversee EMS. That was the whole process. Doesn't help us really in the short run. Hopefully it'll help us in the long run next year. Next year is not a bond year, so we don't know what's going to happen there. So I think our lobbyist has worked very hard to keep us really informed about what's going on. Very frustrated as we all are with respect to that. So that being said, there's other things that's going to come before you. You'll get emails and about some of the other bills that are forthcoming that didn't get included. The Iron Range didn't bode very well in this last legislative session. So thank you. We're going to move to closed session. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to go into closed session.
Motion by Councillor Motley to move to closed session. Is there support? By Councillor Beyondich. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for everyone who's in the audience. If you would please vacate the City Council chambers at this time, and we'll move into closed session. Thank you.